I've planted thousands of perennials over my career, and to be honest with you, some of them are just a waste of money. They look great at the garden center, survived one season, and then done. Nothing left to them. But there's a list of perennials that I keep coming back to year after year, job after job, client after client, simply because they perform. They make my clients happy, they look great in the landscape. And today, I'm giving you that list. Backed by 25 years in the landscape industry, 10 perennials I will always use, no exceptions. Stay with me because number 10 on the list is going to surprise you. Most people have never considered planting it, and it's perhaps the most underutilized perennial in the American landscape. Now, before we dive in, I want to clarify what I mean by the word perennial. These are plants that come back year after year from the same root system. You plant them once, and if you choose the right ones, they just keep giving. That's the deal. The 10 that I'm giving you today are low input, high output, and will put on a show every single year. Let's get into it. Number 1, and I already know what you're thinking. Daylilies, Hemeracalis, really? That's old. That's what my grandmother grew in her yard. And you know, you're right. And that's exactly why it's on this list. The daylily is a workhorse. It is one of the most adaptable, reliable perennials ever put in the ground. Heat, it handles it. Drought, once established, handles that too. Poor soils, handles that as well. They're tough as nails. Now here's where things get interesting with daylilies. Most people think of the old orange ditch daylilies, Hemeracalis fulva, but the daylily world has evolved dramatically. Today we have diploids, meaning 2 sets of chromosomes, tetraploids, meaning 4 sets of chromosomes. The tetraploids especially have given us flower with incredible range, heavier substance, and dramatically improved performance. And then they're the repeat bloomers. These varieties that will give you your second, sometimes even third flush of flowers throughout the growing season. So when I say daylily, I'm not just referring to that orange flower that your grandmother grew in her yard. I'm talking about one of the most versatile plants in the perennial world. They may seem old-fashioned, a little boring, but after 25 years in the landscape industry, these just flat out work. Next on our list is the undisputed king of shade gardens, hostas. If you have a shaded area on your property, and most everybody does, hostas are your answer. I've installed them under oaks, under maples, along north-facing foundation walls. They thrive where most plants struggle. Now here's where most homeowners struggle with hosta. It's not about the flowers, it's about the foliage. This plant gives you texture and color from the time it emerges in spring right through the first hard frost. And the variety is incredible. You've got hostas the size of thumbnails like mouse ears. And you have hostas that can get 4 feet wide and equally tall. Leaf color ranges from bright chartreuse to deep blue-green to almost white. And the variegated varieties, some of the most striking foliage combinations you'll ever find in the plant kingdom anywhere. One thing I always tell my clients about hostas, give them plenty of room. Sure, they look cute in that little 4-inch pot you picked them up in at the garden center, but they can get very big. Some of these giants include Summon Substance and Empress Wu. They need 4, 5, even 6 foot of space to do what they're meant to do. If you live in a high pressure deer area, deer will feed on hostas. Also, slugs can be a slight problem on these as well. But for full shade areas, it is very difficult to outperform the hosta. Number 3 on our list is as tough as they come, Black-Eyed Susan. And specifically, I reach for the cultivar Goldstrom. Goldstrom has been an industry standard for decades, and for very good reason. Black-Eyed Susans are a native plant. And when I say native, I mean it's evolved to thrive in our conditions. It doesn't ask for much, full sun, decent drainage, and it will reward you with golden yellow flowers with that classic dark center from midsummer all the way into fall. But here's what I really love about Rudbeckia. It spreads naturally, not aggressively, not in a way that becomes a headache, but it self-seeds and it clumps up over time. Plant it in the right spot, and in 3 to 5 years, you've got a full drift of color without ever buying another plant. After the blooms fade, leave the seed heads on. This is important. The goldfinches love them. You're supporting pollinators through bloom and wildlife with seed afterwards. That is what I call a plant that earns its keep even when it's not flowering. Plant Black-Eyed Susans in full sun. They're drought resistant once established and also deer resistant. So if you have a blazing hot hillside that you have no idea what to do with, this is your plant. Number 4 is one of the more classically beautiful perennials that you can grow, and it's just now starting to wake up for me here in early spring. Shasta Daisy. There's something about a white daisy with a yellow center that's just timeless, clean, elegant, works in formal gardens, works in cottage gardens, works as a cut flower. The Shasta Daisy does it all. What I love about Shasta Daisies is their versatility in the design process. They pair beautifully with flower colors in the blues, Salvia, Nepeta, Veronica. They work alongside warm colors, Rudbeckia, Gaillardia, Helenium. Shasta Daisies are connector plants. Whatever you put next to them, they make it look better. Now Shasta Daisies can be short-lived, sometimes behaving more like a biennial, so I recommend dividing them every 2 to 3 years to keep them vigorous. Look for newer varieties like Becky or Banana Cream if you want to improve longevity and rebloom. Full sun, good drainage, that's really all they ask for, and in return, they'll provide you weeks and weeks of beautiful white flowers. Number 5 is a pollinator powerhouse, not to be confused with the annual or culinary salvia. This salvia here is a perennial, and it performs outstanding. The purple flower spikes on this plant are stunning, and what I love is they come early, late spring to early summer, and if you deadhead them after the first flush, they'll push another round of blooms for you. Some varieties like Caradonna will rebloom without even deheading at all. Deer resistant, drought tolerant once established, full sun, low maintenance, is checking every box I care about. For companion planting with salvia, consider roses or daylilies. The reds of the roses or the yellow of the daylilies play nicely with the light purple flowers of salvia. There is not a plant on this list that brings in more pollinators and requires less work from you than salvia. Plant it once and it will come back year after year. Number 6 on the list brings something to the garden that few other plants can, and that is fragrance. This is phlox. Walk past a phlox in full bloom and you'll understand why it's been in America's gardens for over 100 years. The fragrance is incredible, sweet, clean, unmistakable. Plant phlox in full sun with good air circulation. Don't crowd it. Keep the foliage dry by watering at the base. Do these things, choose a disease resistance variety, and garden phlox will give you some of the most spectacular color in your landscape. Number 7 on our list is a plant that forever changed the way that I think about foliage, and that is heuchera or coral bells. And for me, this one's all about color in the shade. I talk a lot about plants that solve problems. A coral bell solves one of the hardest problems in landscaping. How do you get color in a shaded area without flowers? The answer is heucheras. The foliage on modern heuchera varieties is extraordinary. We're talking deep burgundies, caramel, lime green, electric orange, almost pure silver. This plant will give you color from early spring all the way to your first hard freeze. Here is on 8A, roughly 10 months of foliage color. When everything else is dormant, especially in those milder climates, heuchera can provide color where nothing else can. Beyond the foliage, the flowers are a bonus. Delicate, wiry stems with tiny bell-shaped flowers that the hummingbirds adore. It's a 2-for-1 plant. Coral bells perform best in partial shade. They can handle full shade, but won't give you the best color. Well-drained soil is critical. They do not like wet feet. And in colder climates, mulch them in the winter. The crowns can heave out of the ground with a freeze-thaw cycle. Coral bells are a plant where variety selection matters. Go to your local retail garden center, find a color that suits you, plant it in the yard, and you will not regret it. We're over halfway to the end of the list, and the last 3 plants on the list are the ones I get the most questions about. But before we get to the last 3, I want to ask you to do one thing. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button and the like button below. I do my best to post videos once a week, no fluff, just straight talk from 25 years of industry experience in landscaping. Let's get back to it. Number 8 on the list is a spring anchor, the daffodils. And I want to make the case for why every landscape should have daffodils in the garden. First and most importantly, in my experience, deer don't touch them. Squirrels don't touch them either. In a world where deer pressure is making it harder and harder to grow what we want to grow, planting something that won't be eaten is a significant advantage. Secondly, Daffodils can naturalize. You plant a daffodil bulb in the fall, they bloom in the spring, and year after year the clumps get bigger. You never have to do anything. That's the definition of low maintenance. The variety within the Narcissus genus is staggering. You've got your classic large cup trumpets, your small cup varieties, doubles that look like something out of a Dutch painting, and miniatures that are perfect for the front of a border. Bloom times are staggering as well, from very early spring all the way into May. So if you choose your varieties thoughtfully, you can have daffodil blooms for 6 or even 8 weeks. One side note about daffodils, you need to leave the foliage on the plant until they begin to brown and die back. The sun is providing energy to the bulb for next year's flowers as well. I suggest planting other perennials that come out later in the season around your daffodils, such as Salvia or Daylilies. As these brown, the other ones green up to hide the brown. Number 9 on the list fills the gap that few other plants can. This is Sedum Autumn Joy. When most other plants are doing nothing, Sedum Autumn Joy is putting on a show. Think about what your garden looks like in late August, September, October. A lot of things are winding down. Things are starting to look tired. And then there's Autumn Joy coming into its peak. Those flat-topped flower heads shifting from soft pink to deep rose to a rusty copper as the temperatures drop. It gives you 4 distinct looks throughout the growing season. In spring, succulent blue-green rosettes emerge, structural and interesting. By midsummer, tight flower buds form. The green heads look almost like broccoli. Then the pink opens up in late summer, and finally by fall those rusty bronze seed heads persist well into winter. Especially beautiful with a frost or a light dusting of snow. This plant is bulletproof. It is drought resistant, it is a succulent, and in winter it provides a habitat for those beneficial insects as well. Number 10, the one I told you that would surprise you, the Linton Rose or Helleborus. And I want you to pay close attention here because this is one of the most underused, underappreciated perennials in American landscaping. People don't talk about it enough. Here's why it's extraordinary. It blooms in late winter to early spring. We're talking February into March in many parts of the country. When your landscape is dormant, when the ground is barely thawed, when you're desperate for something, anything to be alive and blooming out there, the Linton Rose is blooming quietly, beautifully in your shade garden right through the cold. The flowers are nodding. They face downward, which puts off some people. But get down and look up into the hellebore flower. Deep plum, soft pink, creamy white, almost black, bicolors, etc. These flowers are stunning up close. And the foliage is semi-evergreen. In mild winters, the leaves hold on all year. It is an evergreen ground cover for shade that happens to produce breathtaking flowers in the middle of winter. It's slow to establish. I want to be honest with you about that. The first year it's just getting its roots in the ground. But by year 3, you've got a plant that will live for years and years in the garden. They can reseed and naturalize an area over time. I have seen mature Linton Rose plantings that have been in the ground for centuries. Deer resistant, slug resistant, drought resistance once established, providing flowers in the garden when hardly nothing else will. This is why Linton Rose deserves a spot on this list. All right, there's your list. 10 perennials I will always use after 25 years of landscaping. And if you look at the list, all 10 of these have something in common. High performance for low input on your end. Plant them once, keep them watered through that first year, and they will continue to bloom year after year for a beautiful landscape around your home. That is the defining quality of a great perennial. Not one that just survives, but one that thrives year after year for your enjoyment. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 are in your garden? Do you have some in your garden that you would recommend to others as well? And if you haven't yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor, and until next time, happy gardening.